Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's finally time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. Finally, it's been 2 weeks since we've had physical comics at my shop, but we finally got them in. And without much further ado, let's get right into it. We always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week is Ice Cream Man number 23. Yet again, another issue of Ice Cream Man, another groundbreaking, innovative, unsettling, disturbing, and forward-moving comic book. A fantastic book, a fantastic read. Another pick of the week. W. Maxwell Prince is able to just capture these bittersweet juxtapositions of tone and atmosphere and just quirkiness and despair and with a tinge of hope in there as well. And he does it so magnificently well. Now, this issue is done half prose and half comic book. And I love it. It's about a late night talk show host who gets attacked by a snake live on air, but then it fleshes out the story of all these other characters on the other pages, and it shows you the incident on the splash pages there with the talk show host and that the animal trainer that looks very vaguely reminiscent of an Ice Cream Man. Anyway, I absolutely loved this book. I know a lot of people don't usually like it when a book gets very heavy into prose. It takes a little bit longer to read, but this, the way it was structured, it was absolutely magnificent. Definitely worth the investment in reading this issue. And like every issue of Ice Cream Man, if you've never read this book, you could just pick this one up and understand and enjoy what's going on because they're all one and done stories. Pick of the week, Ice Cream Man number 23. Fantastic book. Let's continue on with Image. Let's talk about Stray Dogs number 1. Stray Dogs is it's called, okay, so Brian Michael Bendis on the back says it's The Secret Life of Pets meets Seven. So it is like a Don Bluth animated film. It's got that animated art style. It's about these dogs. They talk to each other. It's like an animated children's film, but it's dealing with like murder, the serial killer, all this kinds of crazy stuff. I really, really liked this book. I thought it was cool. It was a great mesh up of these two different concepts that usually you wouldn't think of working together, but it really did. I thought this was a very enjoyable book. The characters were rounded out, even though they're dogs. You know, like animation style dogs. You feel for them. The characters are all distinct and understandable. And I really, really like the Silence of the Lambs homage cover. And there's going to be a whole bunch of horror movie homages with the Stray Dogs run here. I really liked it. First issue out this week. Then we got Two Moons number 1. This is from Image Comics. I didn't really like this one. It was very confusing. I didn't quite get into the story. I never quite felt engaged into the concept. It's really even hard to explain. This is kind of set, I think it's set during the Civil War or around that era, and it's focusing on this Native American guy, and he's in the midst of the army, and then there's all this stuff, and there's some kind of supernatural thing going on. I don't know. It was kind of just jumbled up, clunky. The artwork was decent, but I don't know. And when the monstrous stuff starts happening, I'm like, that dude just looks like a guy who's got a critter on his head. Anyway, Two Moons number 1 was not really my thing. I was not sold on that. Crossover is here with issue number 4. And it's got Madman on the cover. I'm a big Mike Allred fan, big Madman fan. So when Madman shows up at the end of the last issue of Crossover, I got super, super excited. So now you get some Madman in this issue, and it's great. And you also get another crossover with another Donny Cates, Jeff Shaw comic book, which obviously this cover kind of spoils, right? But I'm really liking this story. It's Donny Cates, Jeff Shaw, they're just having fun. It's about a love of the comic book medium, but it's also got this real cool summer event kind of flair to it, you know, and I'm enjoying it. I love the appearance of Madman. I love the voice of Frank Einstein. It rang very true in this issue of Crossover, and I'm very pumped to see what Cates and company are going to be doing with this book, because they're already setting a lot up in issue number 4. and throwing out some really cool ideas and concepts. So crossover number 4, really enjoyed that one. Then we have the Department of Truth, issue 6. This is a standalone issue of Department of Truth. The first arc wrapped up with issue number 5. That trade paperback is available today, so find it at your local comic shop or wherever you get your comics. It's only $9.99. This is a fantastic book, and this is a one and done kind of, its own story, but it's talking about Lee Oswald, and it's teaching us his story from his perspective, how he got involved in the Department of Truth, how he started uncovering this idea that the belief of the masses affects the actual fabric of reality. It's got artwork by Elsa Charretier. Probably butchered that name. The art style is completely different than what we're used to. It's a more animated, cleaner, noirish, like kind of style, very clean. Really great coloring as well. Aditya Bidikar still continuing to do great stuff with the lettering. Notice how he changes the style to appropriate or to really help maximize the effect of the story and the artwork. So it may seem a bit off with it having such a drastic artistic style change, but I actually think it kind of fits the story because it's kind of a flashback within a flashback, but I liked it. I thought it was cool. It really builds out a little bit more of the mystery and how deep and far back it actually goes. Department of Truth number 6, really liked it. We have the Scum Bag, issue number 5 here. This, to me, is the best issue of the Scum Bag yet. I loved this issue. The basic premise is this. There's this formula that's been developed. There's one dose of this formula left, and somehow it accidentally winds up in the hands of the most scummy person on the earth. Like this guy, he's a junkie, he's a sex addict, he's just like crude and rude and raw and just nasty, and he winds up with it. He thinks he's like shooting up something, and he winds up with these powers. Now he's the world's last hope. Now in these stories, you're going to realize that obviously there's going to be an arc of redemption, something like that, and that's what really starts getting pushed forward in issue number 5. However, the fun and the rambunctiousness of the entire thing is still prevalent, still there. I'm loving this ride. You got Wes Craig joining Rick Remender here. Wes Craig has worked with Rick before on Deadly Class. Really love Wes's style. Really thought it fit. There's a different artist for each issue of Scum Bag, and that's usually something, especially for an ongoing story that's very connected, that could be very jarring, but so far, so good. I'm loving the style, the structure, and the story and characters of the Scum Bag. Issue number 5. Out this week. And then we got Spawn 315. Let's talk about Spawn. This book has been so much fun. I am so glad. I'm basically now a year long into being a hardcore Spawn fan, and I'm having so much fun with this book. We got all these announcements basically about the Spawn-verse coming. I mean, they've already been building this up. In this one, you got medieval Spawn, and you got regular Spawn, and then you got the Monolith Spawn, all against the Omega Spawn, and it's big, and it's just a big, epic 90s fun, flash-filled fight. I had a lot of fun with this one. Carlo Barberi, I'm not usually a big fan of his artwork, but it's something about anybody who comes on to do a Spawn book. It's like Todd helps them like kind of level up a little bit. And then you got like the Plague Spawn, I think is what it's called, finally appearing here at the end. I'm really loving Spawn. Issue 315 out this week. Let's jump over to DC. It's the last week of Future State. Let's talk about Dark Detective number 4. I thought that this was one of the strongest Future State books. Even the backups are cool. This has got the Red Hood, the conclusion of that Red Hood backup, which probably just sets up the Future State Gotham book, which is coming, which is by Williamson and the artist. But the main story, Dan Mora, Jordi Belair, just the best artwork in Future State was their work here in Dark Detective. I'm really liking the story. I like it. The conclusion, it does kind of end suddenly, but I'm super excited to see what Mora and Belair and Tamaki are going to be able to do starting next month at Detective Comics, because they are taking over as the ongoing creative team. And judging by what we've seen in Dark Detective, I'm incredibly excited for that. Dark Detective number 4 out this week. We have Superman House of L. This is a one-shot comic book that kind of spins out of the Superman Worlds of War a little bit. It is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. It is one big story, and it feels epic. This is about Superman's legacy in the cosmos. This is, who knows, hundreds, thousands of years down the road, and there are like the descendants of Superman, right? And some are good, some are bad, some are on a team together, and you kind of just, it's kind of a lot of stuff just thrown at you, and it doesn't really take too much time to explain some things, but I enjoyed it. I think that Philip Kennedy Johnson has an understanding of the character of Superman. It's been displayed in the House of El, it's been displayed in Superman Worlds of War, and I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table with Action Comics and Superman starting in just like a couple weeks, so that's cool. Then we have Future State Superman versus Imperious Lex. Mark Russell, this is the only 3-issue series, the only one that's continuing on into March for its final issue. But I'm liking this one. The basic premise is that Lex Luthor has decided enough of Superman, enough of Earth. He goes and finds a planet orbiting a red sun and calls it Lexor. It's a throwback to some old school continuity. And now there's a crisis on his planet, and he has to reach out to the United Planets, and so they show up. And it's just really great. Lois is involved. I'm really liking this book. It's got this nice satirical touch. Lex Luthor's pretty funny in it. It's a Mark Russell book. It's Steve Pugh. If you're familiar with their work, you know what they do, and they do what they do here. It's Superman versus Imperious Lex number 2. Then we got Future State Batman Superman issue number 2. I'm glad this one wrapped up. I really like Gene Luen Yang. I think he's a fantastic writer. American-Born Chinese is one of my favorite graphic novels. But I just haven't been digging this Batman Superman stuff. I mean, it's got elements that are cool, and it's got elements that are kind of hokey and silly, but I don't know, it just doesn't mesh together for me. But this is the earliest Magistrate Gotham Future State story. So like if you were trying to piece together how they all happen in order between all the Bat Magistrate books, this would probably most definitely be the first one you'd want to read. But it was all right. But I am excited to see what Yang's going to bring to the table going forward starting next month, because Batman Superman now is going to be focusing on the Batman and Supermans of different worlds, of different realities, different omniverses, different hyper times, whatever you want to call it. Future State Aquaman number 2 is here. Really liked this issue. It's going to be sad we don't have an Aquaman book for who knows how long. But I've enjoyed these last 2 Future State books. The first one really focused on Jackson as Aquaman, and this one really focuses on Andy as Aquawoman. And I really liked it. I really liked the artwork too. It makes you feel like you're underwater. It makes it feel like it's something else, like there's something special and different and unique about it. And I really like some of the concepts. So I think that if they continued on with this line of Andy as Aquawoman and Jackson as Aquaman, like I would be cool with this, but I just want some form of Aquaman. So bring it to us, DC. Anyway, I really like that. Thought it wrapped up really soon. Really good. Legion of Superheroes Future State issue 2. Just like the first one. Really didn't like this one. Completely jumbled, garbled. Just did not enjoy it at all. It was boring. I was not excited. It was a chore, and I can't believe I did it. But I wanted to read every single page of every single Future State book, and I did. Legion of Superheroes number 2. I didn't really like that one. Then we got Suicide Squad issue number 2. Suicide Squad from Future State, the first issue, I didn't really like it as it was going, and then it hit the end of its first story, and I thought that was interesting. And then the Black Adam story, I really liked it first because it was set in the 853rd century, the DC 1 million timeline, and then I didn't like the way it ended. And in this one, they're just okay. The Suicide story wraps up decently enough, and it's kind of got a good point that it's trying to get to, and it's setting up some mystery possibly for what's coming up in the Suicide Squad book that starts in a few weeks. But the Black Adam story in here I just really did not like. I thought that was rather dull, very verbose and wordy, and very chory to get through. So there you go. Then we got this Generations thing wrapping up with Generations Forged number 1. It's all right. Like I said, when Generations was Shattered or whatever it was came out, I was like, this is the book for people that like loved Zero Hour and think it's like one of the best DC events ever. It's okay. It's nice revisiting some of these characters from certain timelines, like specifically Steel from 1993, Batman from back in the day, Dr. Light from the post-crisis era. So that's some really cool stuff, but overall it's just a big jumble of goofiness, and it's not really going to turn many people into I don't know what it does. It introduces this concept of the linear verse. Even that just seems weird. It's $10, it's big, it's bloated, it's overloaded, and I don't know. I appreciated it, but it's not going to be for everybody, I'll tell you that. Batman Black and White is here with issue number 3. Not as solid as 1 and 2. I really liked 1 and 2. Loved 2, but issue 3 to me was a bit weaker. It's got work by Bengal, Oliver Coipel, Nick Dragata, Bill Kiesley, Kelly Jones, John Ridley, Tim Seeley. They're okay. There's a next Batman story in here, so that's cool, seeing another story of Jace as Batman. And the artwork is fine. Like, the Coipel stuff is great. The Evely stuff is amazing, but the story itself, I was really confused, and I don't know. These ones felt a little bit more disconnected, a little bit less, like, of a concerted effort to do something. Like I said, the artwork was cool, but none of the stories really grabbed me. And it was kind of disappointing because that last one, issue 2, I thought was seriously one of the absolute best freaking anthology Batman black and whites I've ever read. And I think it does introduce, like, I guess the sidekick for the next Batman or something like that. Then we got Batman White Knight, Harley Quinn, issue number 5 from DC Black Label. This is set in the White Knight universe. I'm loving this book. It's a Harley Quinn book that I'm really liking. I'm like feeling for the character. I'm relating to her. I understand her. I feel bad for her and the relationship she had with the Joker, and I long for the relationship she had with Jack. Like, it's so freaking weird. I never really have been a big Harley Quinn fan, but I am loving this book, and this hits a crescendo of action and tragedy that really, oh my goodness, Sean Murphy and company, because we got Katana Collins, Matteo Scalera's artwork, by the way, oh my goodness, I love this cat's artwork so much. It's just got a great style, it's fluid, the coloring is nice, it's got like this, oh, it's just great, right? I'm loving it, and it's making me like turn into a super hardcore Harley Quinn fan, or at least this iteration of it, but this book's really picks it up a lot of notches. So issue number 5 of that. Let's jump over to Marvel, where we will start with X-Men number 18 by Jonathan Hickman with artwork by Mahmoud Asrar. Really liked this issue. This is a return to the story of the children of the Vault. As we know, that they have returned, and so the X-Men sent Synch, Darwin, and X-23 Wolverine into the Vault to find out what happened, and of course time's different there and all kinds of craziness, so this is our first peek in there, what's going on, what's happening with them, and all it is kind of just the initial first steps, right? I don't feel like a lot is revealed here. You got the return of the children of the Vault and all that kind of stuff, and there's some real big fun action scenes in here, and some really like just intense action scenes, actually. So I really like this issue. I thought it was great. Definitely Hickman is still slowly building up to something with all these different parts. I believe that the children of the Vault, I think somehow it's all connected to the rise of AI and all this stuff. Is really intriguing. I'm glad. It's a real slow build that Hickman's been doing. I mean, they set this stuff up for a while ago, and now they've gone back to it, and they still haven't quite gotten super into it, but I'm loving what Hickman's doing, and X-Men's continuing to thrill me each and every time it comes out. Issue 18 out this week. Another X book that I am loving is Wolverine. Issue number 10 was fantastic. It's continuing this story with Maverick. Maverick has been mind wiped, and now they're trying to sell him on the black market with all these other things, including a severed Wolverine hand, and it's throwing all these questions about the resurrection protocols, because Wolverine doesn't remember losing a hand. Then they're auctioning it off. Really cool, fun stuff. Adam Kubert does amazing job with the artwork here. It gets a little bit annoying at times because he's doing this thing where he has these floating panels just laying around in a lot of empty negative space. And I appreciate the design on some of the layouts, but at the same time, you're just wasting space. You're just wasting space. But then you have pages like this where he's using it to really great maximum effect. But on the pages where there's no background behind it, just seems like a little bit of a cheat. Aside from that, though, I'm loving Wolverine. I loved this issue. I love the setup. Maverick, what's going on with him? What's the future going to be for him? And his relationship with Wolverine and Krakoa. Very intriguing after the events of issue number 10 of Wolverine. So there you go. Then we have New Mutants number 16. This may be the last one I read. I have struggled with New Mutants. It's been up and down. When they hit on the characters I'm really digging on, I can kind of like it. But here lately, they're focusing on these characters I don't have much of a connection to, and I'm finding it difficult to build a connection to them. So New Mutants may be the last one. We're now a year and a half into this, and it's definitely time to take stock at what I'm enjoying and focus on that and drop the rest. So I think I'm done with Excalibur, New Mutants, and X-Factor, and we shall see. But Wolverine and X-Men definitely continuing. Then we have Amazing Spider-Man issue 60. This issue sucked. It was so freaking boring to me. Mark Bagley on the artwork, it's fine. This whole issue is Mary Jane taking Peter to this like rundown like theater or something, getting him to go up on stage in front of a spotlight and air out just all of his feelings about what's been going on. This book is okay. why is the book so draggy? Why are we taking so long to get through this Kindred story? Because we like spend an entire issue of this, like of just Peter just talking on a stage, revealing thoughts and feelings that we already freaking know from the actual action when the story happened. Oh my goodness, the retread, the constant retreading of things, the constant teases into one more day and this. And yeah, it's got this thing at the end, a reveal. Oh, we've seen that coming. We know what's coming. Move the story. I know some people out there really like Amazing Spider-Man right now, and I'm happy for you. I am not one of them. Issue 60 to me is a perfect prime example of what is wrong with this book. It is an overly self-indulgent issue that is just literally Peter regurgitating out information we already know. Maestro number 2, War and Pax, really freaking good. Loving it. Loving it much better than the previous series. Peter David does a great job with the character of Hulk, with Banner, and of course the Maestro. The artwork's really fire too in this book. Javier Pina, Herman Peralta at some parts. I really, really like this book. The first one I had some problems with the idea of the Hercules thing or whatever, but now that we're out of that and we got Doctor Doom and the Pantheon involved, I loved this issue. Action-packed, intense, great characterizations, and great just awesome moments involving the Maestro and even Doctor Doom. Maestro War and Pax number 2, loved it. Let's jump over to Aftershock. We got Nuclear Family number 1. It's a brand new comic book from Stephanie Phillips and Tony Chastain. Really liked this issue. Really cool. It's set in the 50s, so we're during the Cold War. Sputnik has just been launched. And it's about, this is mostly just set up, but it's like a day in the life of an average suburban dude and his family. He's a car salesman. There's the nuclear threat and all this stuff going on. And he winds up home, and then he goes downstairs, and then all of a sudden the attack happens. And it seems like for some reason his household survives this nuclear attack. And that's just pretty much the whole issue. I just pretty much spoiled it for you. But what's really well done in this is the pacing, is the build-up, the way that the artwork is delivering the story, the way that the dialogue is amazing in this book. It feels very real. It's saying some things. It's very subtle in some of the things it's saying. It's a nice dissection, or at least it seems like it's starting to be a nice dissection of, the 50s American family idea, and how that even can lean into today. So I really like this issue, a really cool, intriguing setup. It's written by Stephanie Phillips. She's been doing some really great work of late, so I would highly encourage you to check that out. I Breathed a Body, number 2. So this was the one that I was waiting for people to read. This one was freaking twisted. I loved it. So I Breathe a Body is set in a world, and there's a little bit of horror to it. There's some mystery being developed, but essentially it's about the biggest internet influencer, YouTube, Instagram star, and the corporation that kind of runs because of him, right? And he makes mistakes, and they always have to cover it up. And then at the end of the first issue, he like rips his face off on a live stream. He like kills himself, right? Now there's this other mystery going on about how was he even birthed into the world to begin with, and I'm sure we'll get to this. But now this is about, what does this corporation do? They are based around this dude's personality, this dude's following, and it has to be an every moment thing. So what do? Well, they do some really heinous and terrible things, and gross and gritty and grimy things, to continue to maintain profitability in the face of this tragic turn of events. And it gets twisted, it gets messed up. It is being described as The Social Network meets Clive Barker. That is 100% accurate. This is visceral body horror. It is also an exploration on technology and our relationship to technology and how that affects our relationship to each other and our relationships with ourselves. It's kind of like a thematic successor for Lonely Receiver, but a completely different book, a completely different vibe. Andy McDonald handles everything that he has to handle very well and in a very effective way. I Breathed a Body number 2 was amazing to me, and if you read issue number 1 and you thought it was okay, but maybe you just weren't quite sold, issue 2 is going to be the one that sells you, especially if you're a hardcore horror fan and you really like cerebral horror that's making you think. I Breathed a Body number 2 from Zach Thompson, Andy McDonald and Company, Triona Farrell, Hassan Otsman El Howe. fantastic. For Boom Studios, we got Something is Killing the Children, issue 15. This is the end of the 3rd arc, and it wraps up this whole, like, first big story, the first big explosion of monsters in this small town, and Erica Slaughter and the introduction of her and the Order and all this stuff, and it all comes to a head, wraps some things up, and sets up a whole new chapter for Something is Killing the Children, and I think that they did it fantastically well. James Tynion IV, Werther Dell'Edera, Miguel Muerto, continuing to deliver what they deliver, just absolutely fantastic artwork, atmosphere, nuance through characterization, through drama, through tragedy, and the way the double page spreads, the artwork, the composition of everything, the way that the reds are used, the way that the melancholy blues just overtake everything, the decisions that characters have to make, the sacrifices they make. This was such a great issue that to me that just very perfectly wraps up these last 15 issues, this whole first big thrust into the world of Something is Killing the Children. I'm very excited for what's to come. This book's going to be on hiatus till May, but it ends with a bang, and I cannot wait till it returns. Something is Killing the Children, issue number 15. From Scout Comics, we got By the Horns, number 1. This was a book that, I saw that it was coming out. I remember reading the solicitations about unicorn hunting. I don't know. Fantasy's not always been my cup of tea or my bag. But I read this, and this was really good. This is sleeper hit of the week, pretty much. By the Horns, number 1. This book was freaking awesome. So it's story and direction by Marquesan Nasso, art, lettering, and design by Jason Moore, coloring by Andrea Tabacarli. Sorry if I butchered any of those names. This book was freaking awesome. Scout Comics has really, really been leveling up their game. You got really great artwork, great colors, great paper quality. How come Marvel can't make a comic book like this? How are you telling me Scout can make better quality material than Marvel? Well, they do. So you get introduced to this character. Something has happened. Apparently one of her lovers or somebody very important to her was killed by unicorns. That's an interesting thing, right? And so now she's leaving the village every night to try to hunt down these unicorns and make every unicorn pay. It sounds silly, but the book is actually handled with a lot of respect. It's got a very great sense of design, of an amazing world that's built up. I found this very intriguing. I'm interested in this character. I immediately loved the design, loved the look, loved the character, loved what she does, her actions, and I'm intrigued by it and find it to be very relatable. And I am not a fantasy guy, but I loved it. And an interesting twist. They're we're going to go get these bloodthirsty unicorns and make them pay. What? I really like this book, though. By the Horns, number 1 from Scout. Also, The Recount, number 2 from Scout. I believe this came out last week, maybe. But I read it this week. Loved it. The whole idea is this. The president, newly elected president, gets assassinated. The people that take responsibility for it unleash the names of everybody who voted for this president, and they're not going to end it there. They're out there trying to kill everybody who's voted for this president, and that's what they're doing here. But now you got this new woman thrust into the role of being the president. It's about her and this other lady who is the Secret Service. She's trying to protect her, and so it starts kind of hitting this nice action movie kind of vibe and feel in issue number 2, while kind of building up the mystery on who is this organization, who's their leader, what is he trying to do, what is his plan. The artwork, the dialogue, the pacing, everything about this book was pretty pitch perfect. The Recount number 2 was damn fine comic book making. Year Zero, Volume 2, Issue number 4. Now that I'm kind of over the idea of the artistic change, and I think a lot of people will like the art better in Volume 2 because it's more realistic, it's more gritty, it's more horror-like. I'm actually intrigued by this more and more as these stories have progressed. And Year Zero is a story about a world in which the zombie apocalypse happened, but each volume is taking just different stories that are completely unrelated, but just giving us little vignettes of these stories as they go. The stories are ramping up now. This is the penultimate issue of Volume 2, and I'm enjoying it. Thought it was some really cool moments, and all the stories right now, are very intriguing to me. Year Zero, Volume 2, number 4 was out this week. Then we got the final issue of Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy from the world of Black Hammer. Jeff Lemire just does amazing work with this, and then Tansi Sanjic, Steve Wands. The artwork is great. This is if you look at Black Hammer, it's kind of an exploration on the different eras of comics. This is an era of the 90s. This is dealing with 80s and 90s type stuff. So it's set in 1996, and when everything's about the anti-hero and whatnot, right? But it's kind of what if the Punisher showed up as Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered and took him on and trained him to be his sidekick. This book has a nice emotional resonating punch to it towards the end that I thought was just expertly well done, and these Black Hammer books are great. And here's the thing, even if you've never read a Black Hammer comic book and this was the only one you read, so the graphic novel is about to come out, you could just pick this up and read it and really enjoy it for what it is. Clean artwork, great pacing, great action, and some of the best dialogue and characterization out there in comics because it's Jeff Lemire. Also from Dark Horse, we have the final issue of You Look Like Death, Tales from the Umbrella Academy. This is issue number 6. This story was all in all right. I don't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed the main series of Umbrella Academy, but it was cool to get a little bit of extra content, to learn a little bit more about Klaus and some of his misadventures in the past. I enjoyed the simple artwork. I enjoyed the rambunctious nature of the story. It didn't quite ever get into the right tone and vibe of Umbrella Academy for me, but it's not Umbrella Academy. Remember, it's a tale from the Umbrella Academy. But I like the conclusion, like the things that it set up. So there you go. You Look Like Death number 6. Devil's Dominion number 2 is here from Black Box Comics. I thought issue number 1 was interesting. It's kind of about this demon, and she's out on Earth, and she's trying to hunt down other demons and things like that. Issue number 2 starts just feeling a bit too clunky. It kind of lost me a couple different times. Maybe I need to sit down and reread 1 and 2 together. It's got some nice artwork. It's got some cool coloring. It's some great lettering as well. By the way, the lettering in the By the Horns book was pretty freaking cool. But Devil's Dominion was okay. I thought it was decent. But I don't know how I'm going to feel about the series going forward. Serial is here with issue number 2. I was very confused by issue number 1, and I love Terry Moore, but I was very confused by issue number 1, and issue number 2 did not help me out with my confusion. I was kind of lost. There's some really sad, poignant moments in this book that really are very well executed and effective. But then it's just really still confusing. I don't get what's going on. There's a lot of mystery. I understand Terry Moore, and he can really plan for the long game sometimes. It feels like that's what he's doing here. But I am enjoying it, but I am lost. I cannot tell you what this book is about, to be honest. It's about this, apparently she's been like 10 for like 20 years or something. She's like a serial killer. I'm really confused and lost in this book, but still at the same time, quite fascinated by it. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. What'd you read? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. I am so sorry that the comic book reviews for the last 2 weeks have been so late. However, hopefully all that's behind us now and we can get back to our regularly scheduled program. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell so you don't miss a single video, and join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.